about today is 3 essential skills for modern leaders. All right, so skill number 1 is multimodal communication. Multimodal communication means using multiple methods for communicating or getting a message across or sharing information. Unfortunately, it feels like despite so many new tools at our fingertips, in the workplace, we always fall back on meetings or email.
Yeah. What are all the tools that's available to you? And do you understand which message is best fit for which tool?
Right. So here's an example. One of the things that we've seen done really well is when a message actually just requires one person delivering information to people. It doesn't require back and forth responses necessarily, and it doesn't require an immediate conversation, or it's best if that information is delivered and gives people time to think about it. Video. Just record a really quick video of yourself sharing the information, distribute that out to your team, and then allow them to watch it in their own time, and then they can process it, and you can use that to kind of feed into a bigger conversation when needed, if needed, right?
Yeah. If you only have so much time in a meeting, let's use that time really well, where it is for discussion, it is for live collaboration. And so any information that you need to give, can you give that ahead of time?
And then there are also tools for collaboration as well. So if you want to allow people to kind of contribute their thoughts to something, use a program like Miro. We use Miro a lot, but even shared documents for drafts and everything to allow comments or questions or edits or reviews. I mean, again, you don't have to all be in the same place at the same time or try to craft something through this long email chain. You can just collaborate kind of asynchronously through any of those methods.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that I find sometimes is when people are overwhelmed with email, team messages, or chat messages and meeting invite, they don't have time to actually review the information that they need to, so that they show up at meetings not being prepared to actually contribute meaningfully. So then you kind of waste that time and having to book other meetings. So if you actually think a little bit more about what can I push to asynchronous communication as much as possible to reduce that kind of synchronous meeting time and give people back their focus and their attention, you would be actually a lot more productive as a team.
Yeah. So that's skill number 1, multimodal communication. Leaders, start looking into other tools that you can use and really question yourself before you send that email or book that meeting. Is there a better way for you to be communicating with your team?
So as you're saying this, the second skill that's bubbling up for me is emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
So
that's a good one.
Yeah. So what I mean by that is your ability as a leader to be aware of your emotions and to manage your emotion, and to be aware of your team's emotion and to manage those as well. Because let's face it, we're human, which means we have emotions. And we can't just check it at the door when we sign in for work or come into work. It's going to come with us.
Yeah.
And sometimes those feelings are about our work, or about, the people that we're working with, or about changes that are happening in the workplace. And so if we don't address and kind of talk about those emotions, process those emotions, they're going to get in the way. And this is kind of what we see all the time when we come in and usually a team is not functioning at the best level that they could be, or there's been resistance to change. Guess what's at the core of all of this issue? Unresolved emotions.
Well, and I think traditionally leaders have been taught, or have kind of encompassed this belief that emotions don't belong in business, they don't belong in the workplace. And we're not taught this, right? Like there isn't necessarily a course on how to emote as a leader. But the reality is that leaders need to lean into this hard. I think more and more workers are expecting to show up as a human who is cared about, right? And who can kind of feel the feels while they're going about their day. And so a leader who actually creates space for this is going to do well, is simply going to get the best out of their teams. How do you build it? I'm pretty sure it starts with you. So getting more aware of your own emotions and creating kind of the space for yourself to acknowledge that, absolutely step 1. Like if you kind of try to close the gates on your emotions at work as a leader, I think that that's going to be a challenge for you. So start admitting when you're feeling a certain way and dare to do that in front of your team, because when you model it for them, it kind of creates a space for them to do it too.
Yeah, and I find this is where coaching can really help a lot of leaders, because one, if they're not used to kind of excavating some of these emotions, coaching session can be a really safe space for them to start that exploration not by themselves, and have somebody who can kind of guide them through that process and support them through that. And if they're not used to kind of being a bit more open and being a bit more vulnerable with their team, the coaching session can be, again, a safe space for you to just try that on for size and see how it goes, or just talk through how do you want to go about doing that in a way that feels safe and comfortable and authentic for you, right? So coaching can be a really big help for leaders in this space.
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
So what's the third one?
Okay, the third one is all about agility and experimentation. I think in this world, it is so dynamic. Things are changing constantly. We can't keep up, right? That's I think an overwhelming sentiment. And so guess what? The whole point isn't necessarily to keep up. It's just to keep trying, right? The only way that you can do that is if you experiment. So we don't know a lot of things that are coming down the pipeline in the workplace. And so what we need to do is lean into that and create a culture where experimentation, trying things, and failing a little bit is okay, is accepted, and kind of treated as a learning opportunity instead of as something to be avoided at all costs.
Yeah, I think it's a new level of psychological safety, right? So when we talk about psychological safety, there's different levels, right? So it first starts with, do you feel like you're welcome in the space? Do you feel like you can show up as who you are? That's like an inclusion level of psychological safety. And then the next level of psychological safety is, do you feel like it's safe for you to admit what you don't know? Do you feel that it's okay for you to say, I don't know that, but I'm willing to lean into that. I'm gonna grow. And then to me, this last level of psychological safety of like, I'm willing to speak up and say something that might be contrarian to what the rest of the room is saying. I might stick my nose out and say, you know what, I'm going to try this, and the chance of success is 50-50, it's not 100. And so if it succeeds, great, but if it's not, like, I know that I'm safe. And I think that's a level of psychological safety that leaders have to figure out how to create or foster for their team.
Absolutely, because the only way that you can stay ahead of the curve or even ride the curve is by innovating, right? And innovating requires a certain level of taking risks. And so I think that this skill feels uncomfortable for leaders. I think a lot of leaders have been primed to never fail, to do everything really, really well. And really, as a leader who supports experimentation and agility, you got to protect your team when they're experimenting too. If somebody fails, have a conversation about what we can all learn from it, and show them that it is okay to try, and that as long as we lean into it and take something away from it that we can use going forward, they're going to be more willing to push the envelope a little bit, do new things, and push your team and maybe your broader organization into whole new territories.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to also setting and managing expectation of who it is that you're reporting to, right? If you're reporting to a board, or if you're reporting to a more senior leader than who you are, how do you manage their expectation? How do you have the conversation about what does success look like for you and your team? And how do you build in the space for experimentation and risk-taking and potential failure into that expectation, that success metric, right? Because I think that's maybe one of the main reasons why leaders are afraid to go there, because of how they measure, right? What success actually is defined for them.
Absolutely. So that's it. 3 essential skills for modern leaders. We have multimodal communication, we have emotional intelligence, and we have agility and experimentation. So start building those skills.
And let us know how it goes.
Yeah. So if you enjoyed that, make sure you subscribe, and can't wait to see you in our next video.